Suddenly you see a mast approaching you pretty fast. Hope it's not like the last, then it just sails right past. This is Outlaw Bookseller unboxing Feline 40th anniversary limited edition coloured vinyl. So here's a moment we remember well. The final album from the original lineup, which didn't feature the horn section. The last time we'd see them live in the original lineup without the horn section. You notice I'm mentioning the horn section a lot, who are not on this of course, as is implied by that if you don't know the record. Because then it was never the same after, it was never just the original guys, you know, it was always the augmentation, you know, it was always different. I'll just try and keep the sticker from the shrink. I'll try and get that on somehow, simple as you can't always get that with the shrink. But anyway, here it is. Gosh, how many copies of Feline have I got? I don't know, probably half a dozen at least. People will have more out there. And yeah, so there's the guys inside, a classic shot. I do like that red and black actually. That works really well. Really well. We look at the track listing, and it's the original album on the first LP. Then there's the bonus LP, and let's see what we've got. European female radio edit. Now, I don't think that's ever been released before. Obviously, there would have been a 7-inch single to play on the radio, but I don't recall ever having that, so maybe that's new to this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's not appeared on anything official before. Then we've got the single version of Midnight Summer Dream, the radio edit of Paradise, which I think has appeared on something. But again, correct me if I'm wrong, so maybe it's those two. Porsche. Can anybody tell me what Porsche is about? And obviously it's the same pronunciation as the car, Porsche, but you know, what does it actually mean? I said, a great track, I love it. I find it very, very relaxing to listen to. And Permission, which is fantastic. I mean, I have to say at this period, the band's B-sides in this period, and then when you get to Oral Sculpture, I think are often better than the album tracks. I wouldn't say these are better than the tracks on this album, but they're certainly better than many of the ones that would come on Oral Sculpture. And the B-sides of the Oral Sculpture singles, they're usually much better tracks than what she ended up on the albums. Midnight Summer Dream, the special 12-inch mix, that's the longest thing the band ever recorded, 10 minutes 35 seconds I seem to recall. The full melody vocal version, which we all wanted to hear at that point. Savage Breast, fantastic stuff. Vladimir and Olga, and the Sculpture Manifesto. Really, it should have been at the beginning of the LP, I think, should it, rather than at the end. Though I guess you could say that it's a precursor to what would come on Oral Sculpture. Ironically, their most produced, overproduced, and badly produced, in my opinion, album. I don't know what you think about that. I found the production very boxy and overdone and sort of very sort of 80s, and it hasn't aged well, I don't think. But Feline, I think, is fantastic. So talk a bit about the record. We'll have a look at the vinyl and what have you. So we've got nice lyric inner sleeve there, slightly different to the original, which I still have. There we go. And of course, what you get, let's see, the advanced pictures look really, really good. So that's quite different, isn't it, the advanced pictures? You know, the pictures you see is depicted as solid, but that's actually very nice. I really like that. It's unusual. I'd have preferred a more solid red and pink, but that really is unusual. I can't think of any other record I've got that is that colour. So yeah, it's good, isn't it? Really, really nice. And nice to see this on BMG. When can we have some reissues of the albums in the shops, please, alongside those records by the Pistols and the Clash and what have you? And of course we know the Stranglers outsold them all in 77, so why can't kids today walk into a record shop with all this vinyl and pick up Rattus and Heroes and Black and White and excerpts? You know, what is wrong with the world? Everything's upside down, isn't it? You know, as the band would have predicted back in the day. So having a look at the other album, and yeah, there you go, that's good. That's a nice shot there with the mirror shades, and it's got all the details of this bonus LP. There you go, tells you everything about that. Just looking through it. Okay, there we are, and there's a lovely black leopard, or panther as we would say. Radio version, the single. Great, okay. Right. Great, so that's really nice. Just reading over the credits there. Sorry for my hesitation. And now this is darker. This is a dark one. I guess they're all going to be slightly different. If we can get this out. It's very, very tight. I usually have paper poly lined in as ready, and I don't them because I'm not buying many records these days. I need to get some new ones. So that's very definitely a red. So the discs are two different colours, but that's really, really nice. The red works really well with Feline. And yes, I have to get that sorted. So what do we think about Feline? I mean, I really love it. I think it's fantastic. There are a couple of tracks which are not as strong as the rest, but I'm going to talk through it and do a bit of a review now, and I'll be interested to see what you guys think of it, whether you're a fan as well. But yeah, this was a great time. I remember seeing the band in Sophia Gardens on this tour in Cardiff, and it was the last gig I went to at Sophia. I'd seen the Jam there, Susie and the Banshees. I saw the Tubes there in 1979. And they were just after their peak then, and they were amazing. And of course there was a connection between the Stranglers and the Tubes because they were both on A&M in the States, and they were friendly, they knew each other. And a great band. If you can get the Tubes' first 3 albums, the eponymous one, Young and Rich, and Now, they are superb records. They don't fit into any category. They're marvellous, marvellous records, and I really advise you to get them. But anyway, Feline. Yeah, I remember that gig really well. I was down the front. I was always down the gig. Every gig I went to for years and years and years, probably the first decade and a half I went to gigs, I'd always be in the front row. And yeah, the only thing I can remember that went wrong was when the guys tried to play Never Say Goodbye, they couldn't manage the transition from the picked acoustic guitar intro into the rest of it, and I think it was Hugh couldn't manage it. Hugh and JJ maybe. Jet and Dave sadly no longer with us were fine on that, but that was a strange thing. It's the only time I saw them sort of fluff anything. It was really weird. But yeah, great tracks. I mean, Midnight Summer Dream stood out as soon as you bought the album. That amazing, beautiful keyboard melody, which I can play a bit. I'm not a great keyboard player. I can play that, and it's really, really beautiful. And when you learn how to play it, it's just superb. So you get that thing where Hugh is speaking the lyrics all the way through, and on that version you don't get the full melody that you want to hear till the end, and it's lower in the mix and the spoken thing, and it works really beautifully. And I have to say that's my favourite version of Midnight Summer Dream, because that melody line is so strong, it doesn't need to be overemphasized, even though I do like both other versions, the 7-inch mix and the 12-inch mix, which is great. It's great to hear Hugh singing that, and his voice is just fantastic on this. It's a Small World for me has always been the minor track on that side. It's okay, but it never really grabbed me. It's always seemed a bit of an obvious cliche, you know, the Small World cliche. We've all experienced it. Cliches exist because there's truth in them, but it's never been one of my favourite tracks. And then of course Ships Are Passing the Night was always fantastic to see live, with that guitar interplay, guitar bass interplay, and the riffing and what have you, and the keyboards held back, and Dave laid out quite a lot on that. It's got a lovely melody, absolutely fantastic. And again, you know, Ships Are Passing the Night is a cliche, but it really worked better with the music. The music seemed more inspired to me than on It's a Small World. And then European Female, here the European Female. Sometimes on some releases, I think there's one or two where it says in celebration of the European Female, and this for me is a keynote track. I mean, the acoustic guitar, you get Hugh's weird wrist action as he pulls off those strange curlicues at the end of each sort of guitar line and what have you, and that whispered vocal from JJ, and beautiful, beautiful stuff. And the references throughout Eurocentric things like "We'll be together for 1,000 years," which has its dangerous hint of the 1,000-year Reich, and the fact that the song is about Europe really sort of embodied as a woman, Europe as a sort of feminine ideal, as Goethe, the great German writer, Faust, wrote, the eternal feminine draws us upward and on. And I think we sort of, those of us who love Europe and are Eurocentric, and I'm very much one of them, very drawn to that very romantic European thing which JJ brought to the band. And for me, typifies most of their best work, you know. And if you sort of feel that deep in your soul, you know why they're never going to be big in America, which is a shame. But there you go, a fantastic track. And you know, I saw her in the Strasse and on the Rue as well. A little bit of European language in there for those of us in Britain. We speak English, we try to be lazy. The other languages, it's a cliche, but it's true. And that's continued with Let's Tango in Paris. You know, very sedate and sort of slow and held back and settled track, beautifully romantic and gorgeous. And it's interesting, at this point I think David Buckley speculated that the band saw themselves as more like a sort of mature sort of band, rather like Roxy Music were by this point with Avalon, where everything is smoothed out and they're stepping back and it's very sheeny. Except I think Roxy really, I wouldn't say they lost it by then, but it sort of lacks the verve of the early stuff. With this, with the Stranglers, I mean, you can still see hints of Rattus in here, the darkness, the wetness, the mausoleum sound. I think some reviewers said that this was like a slab, a dead black piece of obsidian, and there was just echoes and shadow and no light, and that it wasn't a very lively record. It was dead on the vinyl. But to me, that's part of the beauty of it, the sort of Ebon sort of stillness of this, where there is nothing but shadows and, you know, gentle light. And all the way through the record, I always think of walking at night through European cities and their beauty and their stillness and their civilization, and I just think that's there all the way through. Paradise, of course, JJ singing at the top of his register. Unusual choice for a single. For me, really, apart from European Female, there weren't really any singles on this, and that was part of the issue. And of course they only issued 2 from this, and after that we just got too many singles from the records after that. That was the thing. All Roads Lead to Rome, of course there was that video made for that one. It's an interesting one. Blue Sister is the one which I think was it Jet hated it. One of the band disliked it, and of course they said they wrote it for Dave when he broke up with a girlfriend, and it's got that sort of little harmony vocal thing from here which is reminiscent of Golden Brown. And yeah, it's okay, but it's not sort of all sort of cylinders, that one really. That's probably one of the weakest ones on here. And then Never Say Goodbye is really good. It's got that great flamenco feel, that Hispanic thing, that Latin thing. And you know, what can you say? The beautiful acoustic guitars, the way they have the Kincaid brothers make them, and they just sound magnificent, and they mesh wonderfully with the crystalline synthesizers, the subtle synthetic wash that goes across them. Absolutely magnificent, and a beautiful record, and a consistent record. Some songs stronger than others, I say, but you really can't go wrong with that. The other tracks, well, you know, we've pretty much covered them. Savage Breast, that's absolutely great. So that's the new edition of Feline on vinyl. There is a CD equivalent, which I haven't ordered because it comes in some sort of horrible digipack. And I'll be honest, I really, really hate digipacks, and I try and avoid buying them wherever I can. So an historic sort of album, really. The last time the 4 guys played together on their own on record, and yeah, it was never really the same after that, though there was some good stuff to come still, obviously. And there is the CD. I probably will have to get it because, as I say, I don't think that sort of shorter version of Female is on any of the existing CDs or albums. So there we go. That's great stuff. So I hope you enjoy that. Nice to see this out there. Hopefully there'll be more nice releases like this to come for those of us. Why do we keep buying them? We've already got them. We just can't help ourselves, can we? And we love it. Well, have a great weekend, guys. Thanks for watching. Do check out my other Stranglers videos. There's not many recent ones. There are lots of older ones. There will be more. I'm doing lots of science fiction on the channel at the moment because that's the way I get the most action. But I know a lot of you watch a lot of my stuff, the different things I do. So, as I say, look forward to that popping in your post box. No doubt lots of you have had it already. And bye for now.